Rod Ferguson was asked, or he wasn't asked. He just gave it up. He gave up the information that I've been asked this a bunch of times. As soon as the PS5 Pro launches, Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred will be there at launch with it. It will be PS5 Pro enhanced. And then also there is a news report that came out that there is a verifiable link, obviously, that you can go look at, that Microsoft's issued a kind of like a poll or here's a bunch of questions that we have for you if you've chosen PlayStation over Xbox, right? And why you don't have a game on Xbox, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting that is the approach we're taking now. Not only are we making sure that, even though, yes, Activision is supposed to be by itself, right? You're having a game be PS5 Pro enhanced at the launch of the PS5 Pro, your competitor console, which would ultimately make it better than the console you currently have. And then you're now releasing a thing that's telling devs, we want to know why you've not chosen Xbox. So if you look at that from a I don't own an Xbox perspective, Mark, what does that say to you?
That they don't understand why people want one console over the other, or they don't understand like that people go with what the first adopters go with.
Right. And I think part of it's just something that Phil Spencer even said himself. Like, part of that you're not going to give back because they chose PlayStation 4. Yeah.
See, it's the thing though. I don't think it's necessarily a first adoption thing.
Yeah.
Like they can look at the success of the Xbox 360 versus PS3 and go, we came out a year earlier, so we had a year ahead. But it's like, well, yeah, you did, but you also had a better online infrastructure, cleaner interface, not gimmicky shit, at least back then. A better, like, just better online things like that. And so when I think like when they have to go toe to toe, like the recent console or the one before that, where they had a lot more gimmicky shit with it, that didn't go well in their favor.
Well, and also they had exclusives, right? It also fundamentally was a better console for the devs to make for, because how many games came out on PS3 and they were buggy as crap?
Right.
So yeah. And then Xbox 360 had the Red Ring of Death that didn't help it either, but they were able to fix that eventually.
Right. I had a talk with Jens recently. What would you say? I mean, it was the anniversary, just talking about it. What would you say is the best PlayStation generation, or your favorite? Let's say that.
My favorite is still probably the PS1.
Actually, so is mine. I would say PS1. I would actually say it's a tie. Then, like, the next one is PS2 and PS4. I might say PS4 personally, but PS2 had a lot of great games for it. Next one it would be like PS5, and the last one would be PS3.
Oh, definitely agree.
And
I think there's a lot of people that would say PS4 is right there. If you didn't play in the PS1, to them the PS4 is probably the best generation.
Right. But I bring that up because in Jens's view, the PS3 is the best system. And I'm like, you're the only one who thinks this.
As a system, if you include all the things that it can do, if you get the big fat one,
right,
it's a great system. As far as like the games on it, that's a whole different deal. But as far as what the system can do,
that's the thing. Is like, I think PS3 had a lot of great games for it, but they didn't iterate well, and they also killed off a lot of their like PS2 and PS1 franchises along the way.
Yeah,
and that's not great. But yeah, I think like it's not. I think like maybe Microsoft is still in like the mentality of the tribe, or just not understanding what people want. Like, does it really take like a market focus group, or like a survey from Phil going like, why do people want the PlayStation over the Xbox? And it's like, well, PlayStation has 70% of the market. That's
Mhm.
of the two consoles at least. Uh, that's what most people play games on. That we can see direct sales. You know, don't do we need to go further?
I think part of it is it's also the thing that goes against their current policy. It's they have exclusives, right?
Right.
Um, to be fair, a lot of it is I already own a PS4, so I'm gonna buy the next thing that goes in the number of what I already own because it plays the games that I already own. So, there's so many people that have not moved over from the PS4 yet
Right.
because they can play all the games that they want to play on the PS4 still. And there's still games coming out. Metaphor is coming out on the PS4.
Yeah, that Jedi Survivor game kind of PS4
Yeah,
recently,
like they even went back at, like you said, made Jedi Survivor on the PS4. So like it there's still no big reason for somebody to move over. And if you have an Xbox One, even less because you have Game Pass. And unless you really want to play almost all the big games, except for like Starfield,
yeah,
they're
and
gonna be on PS5.
believe me,
So
the
yeah.
DLC for Starfield isn't looking too hot.
No,
So
yeah, it's not doing great. Even though it's funny because it's like it seems like a very high contrast between like what the critics say on that
right,
one to what people that are actually like enjoy Starfield say.
yeah,
That it's not as short as people say it is. It's just that people are running through it because that's mainly what you do when you review a game is you're getting through the main
right.
campaign and then you do some of the side stuff and that's it. Um, so it's just a difference of opinion. But yeah, it's interesting, but I don't know if they're really gonna find out anything that they don't already know.
Right.
Like I think they know the reasons. They just don't want to go back to that model because they can't compete with Sony at that model of
I
beating
mean,
them for exclusives and things like
they
that.
could at one point, but not anymore because they're such a services company.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and to be fair to them, they are making strides, like we talked about last week with all the Japanese stuff that is coming over to them. Uh, yes, there are still companies that will probably never work with them because they just don't see the point. Like NIS America being one of them, like just they don't see the point of really they're already a niche in themselves, that entire company and all the games they make. Putting it on Xbox is like, wow, just going to the niche or the niche or the niche. So like they're feeling like they're not gonna get anything out of that.
right.
So there's just certain companies that's like it doesn't behoove them at all unless Microsoft's coming in with the money and saying, okay, put your game over here, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just one of these things where I do think that having the head start, whether it's 1 year or 2 years or even 6 months, could help them if they have the rest of the stuff going by then. Have a really
That
good Halo, have things that can bring people in.
that's the other
You know.
problem though, is like they don't like for the past 4 years or maybe even longer, they've been really spinning their wheels
Mhm.
as far as like, you say what you want about Sony's output, like you can not like Spider-Man or God of War Ragnarok, but other people do, and those games sell incredibly well. And
Well, but look at the lineup. Look at the lineup of all those games that have come out this year that are PlayStation exclusives, and almost all of them are pretty great.
yeah,
And then, okay, Hellblade 2, whether you like it or not, that's not the point. The point is that that's all it's been. And
right,
Indiana Jones, okay, that's going to come out so late that at least for this year won't matter for most of the awards.
yeah,
And you destroyed the studio that you let somebody else go buy the studio that made your one critical game that you had that wasn't Hellblade. So you've kind of dug yourself in this hole.
yep,
And like you said, not only spinning wheels, but constant delays. Avowed was supposed to come out this year. What happened? Got delayed, right?
Well, even
Uh,
like the studios they bought, you know, over the past decade or whatever. It's like, what is I still bring it up, but what is Double Fine up to? No,
they
Psychonauts 2 came
Psychonauts
out
2, and yeah, that's
3
it.
years ago at this point, I think, or at least 2, and they haven't announced shit. And it's like, what? I like Double Fine, don't get me wrong, but
Right. I think they're taking the Sony model now as well of we're not going to announce something unless we know it's coming out soon because they've
which
been
is
burned too
good
much
because,
too.
like, yeah, look
Right.
at what happened with, you know, some of their
Look at
big
Starfield.
games.
They had to delay that whole thing a whole entire year.
Yeah,
So,
but you should at least try to, you know, maybe not announce something, but say, "Hey, we got something in the works," you know?
right. Like they did with that Clockwork Revolution game, the new In Exile
Yeah,
game or whatever. Like they did a good job with that. That got people excited. Um, it just they have to not only reveal things from those studios, but they have to stick to those dates and actually have them come out and
right.
not be announcing delays. And then as you go throughout the year, the thing that people are paying Game Pass for, these first party games, they're getting less and less and less. And yes, now you have Activision Blizzard King to roll back on, which you have Vessel of Hatred coming out in a matter of hours for
Yeah,
people,
2
or
2 at this point.
yeah, so that's great. I mean, that's gonna be you have Call of Duty coming out at the end of the month. That's great for you as well. Um, and you announce some cool Blizzard stuff coming, old stuff, and maybe there's new stuff coming with that too. But it's like your other things have to kind of fall in a line and a pattern and really be able to get to that thing that it feels like Phil Spencer promised many moons ago about a first party game each quarter. And it's like, look, Flight Sim is cool, but most people, even with Game Pass, are not even going to bother with Flight Sim,
See,
right?
that's like
It's
one of the few
yeah,
games I'd actually be interested in personally,
right.
but
But yeah, I mean that's even more of a niche than the Forza games are.
right.
So it's like it's cool that they placate to that, right? I think it's cool that they Our History Untold exists, right? I think that's cool that game exists. But again, it's like that is serving one master, which is mainly PC, and then
Yeah,
two, it's like it's a genre that is loved by that crowd, but not so much the console crowd. Same thing with the Age of Mythology stuff or whatever. It's cool that those games exist and they continue to have games, but they're not the mass market ones that are going to sell people on, oh, I need to go buy a Game Pass for this, you know? So
yeah.
maybe they'll figure it out with this research thing.